So I'm Noelle. I am a lead publishing specialist here, and our two panelists are Ben O'Connell and Tami LaTrell. If you guys want to do a little intro for yourselves.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? My name's Ben. I work here at Songtrust, also lead publishing specialist. Do artist outreach, and outside of work, I also manage a few artists and am a songwriter artist as well. So I am also a Songtrust client.
Hi everyone, Tammy here. I'm a multi-platinum songwriter. I have been a Songtrust ambassador and client with them for about a few years now. Happy to be on the team. I also work with a lot of songwriters and producers nationwide who are, really just trying to expand themselves in the music industry and understand more about the business of music. I teach workshops on music publishing as well. Some of you may know me from my YouTube channel, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's get started with our agenda. So just what we'll be going over today, just so everybody has a brief overview of what you have to expect. We're definitely going to go over the core differences between what a traditional publishing deal looks like versus a publishing administration deal. We'll also be discussing the different benefits of the different publishing deals that are out there to creators and the information that you should know before you agree to anything or you sign any agreements. Then we will go over the role that publishing plays in your royalty collection and the importance of registering your songs early as soon as they're released to make sure that you're not missing out on any of these royalties on the publishing side. So we're just going to give you some firsthand insight to help you better negotiate on your own behalf when you are establishing a publishing option for yourself to get yourself all set up. Okay, so pretty much the goal of the webinar today is just to go over how complex different publishing deals can be. And a lot of times creators do have limited knowledge of the business and of the business side of things, which can lead to them falling into like unfavorable deals with, terms that aren't always the best for them and for their careers. So it's definitely good to do your research, and just being at this webinar is like a great first step of learning about not only the different types of publishing deals, but just learning more about the business side of the publishing industry to help get yourself more set up for success.
Yeah, it's great to be educated on these topics before you jump into anything. You want to know the ins and outs, pros and cons of any kind of deal or agreement that you are potentially signing. So first things first is just get educated on these things before you jump into anything.
Definitely. Okay, so if you have attended any of our previous webinars, I'm sure you've seen this breakdown before, and we just wanted to put it up to make sure that everybody just has the basic understanding of the fact that there are different types of royalties generated from your original song. So there's the master side and the publishing side. We're only discussing the publishing side here today. And if you're looking to learn more about, the complexities of publishing itself and the different types of royalties you earn on that side, we do host a weekly Music Publishing 101 webinar, and that will be, you'll be able to register for that with the link in the chat box. There's actually one tonight if you're looking to do two webinars at once. So let's just get started with the panel section. So Ben, I know that you manage a few creators. What do you think for them is the most common misconception about publishing?
Oh, I'd say certainly, a lot of things, number one, but definitely the fact that a PRO doesn't collect everything that you're owed. Pretty simple, but most creators are just under the impression that, being with BMI or ASCAP is enough and that they're going to collect everything that you are owed. That's certainly the most common misconception I've come across with my artists. But, also that a publishing deal is obviously the best route to go. Taking a big advance, it can be good or bad. Obviously, we're going to get, more into the details later on, but I'd say the most common misconception is that a PRO really collects everything that you're owed, which is certainly not the case.
Right, yeah. And Tami, when you were first getting started in your career, how were you first introduced to publishing?
Wow, I definitely was not taught that it was a loan in advance. So I went into it I knew that I would eventually have to make the money back, but I just didn't really realize how much of it would be owed. And the complexities around the deal that could limit how much is actually being paid back, which means that you would ultimately stay in the deal longer because it has to meet certain terms in order for you to recoup at the the agreed percentage. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
definitely more than I thought.
right. And in those like beginning stages of your career, were you interested in learning about this like side of the business, or were you more just interested in like creating and getting yourself out there?
My story was a little bit different because I came in the business fighting for my publishing in the beginning. If anyone may or may not know, but I have a story on my YouTube channel about how I found out that Whitney Houston had recorded and actually released my song on Arista Records, and it was unbeknownst to me. No one had reached out to me to let me know that this had actually occurred. So I
Yeah.
didn't find out until my freshman year of college. My mom called me and said, "Hey, Whitney's singing your song." And so I literally had to backtrack and figure out, how did this happen? In addition to that, what are the steps that were needed in order to, make sure that I would get paid and be included. They did not know that I actually owned the copyright to the entire song. So that was my leverage. And from the very beginning, it was get your business straight, from that point on. And so when I went into my pub deal, even though there were certain terminologies and certain things that I didn't know, I still was like, I need to make sure that it's still fair for me. But it changes, just as the
Yeah.
music industry has changed.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of times people end up learning about the business side when they do get into a situation like that, when they're kind of forced to learn about the business side so they could save whatever, rights that they had. But I think it's really important just for any creator at the beginning of their career just to learn about it, just in case so they're equipped if they are offered a deal or whether they want to handle it their own, like with an administrator. So it's definitely super
Absolutely. I
important.
think to piggyback off what you just said, I think this generation, especially of creators, music creators, they have to come in with this as a prerequisite. Like you have to, because there's so many opportunities and outlets for them to put out their own music, release it, join as a writer, join with another record label or another indie artist that they support and actually work with them to help create great music and get it released and so forth. I mean, you really don't need a record label. You really don't need to have all of the systems that were in place back in the day, which required, a lot more knowledge and expertise. I mean, and then we have Google and then we have Songtrust. So
Yeah,
at this point, it's just no excuse. It's a part of you being a music creator who is going to release, your music. You definitely have to understand this business.
definitely. And that kind of leads us into getting into what a traditional publishing deal is, the different pros and cons.
Yeah, so let's look at these pros and cons. I mean, traditional publishing, the main aspect really is ownership, right? Like who has the rights to these copyrights. Typically, with a traditional publishing deal, you're going to give up an ownership percentage of your copyrights, potentially for life, potentially for a fixed term, in exchange for additional services, right? They're going to offer creative services. They're going to pitch your music for sync. Maybe they're going to put you in writing camps and writing rooms and pitch your demos to major label artists and whatnot. They're also going to offer advances, which Tammy alluded to is obviously recoupable, right? If a company shells over 100 grand, they're not expecting just make 100 grand back. They're looking to make possibly 150 or 200 grand back, right? So understanding what an advance really entails, the fact that they're really just advancing you your own money. Talk about term length. Obviously, traditional deals are typically 3 to 5, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 30 years long. It really is kind of case by case. These are just the things that you want to look after and keep in mind when you're coming across these deals. And also just availability at the end of the day. I mean, to be blunt, not all creators are really going to have the opportunity to get offered an amazing artist-friendly publishing deal, right? So you want to be able to at least educate yourself on the alternative options. But if a traditional deal does come across your table that's worth taking, like more power to you. That's an incredible accomplishment. And Tami, maybe you can speak about some of the traditional deals, that you've come across.
Um, can you hear me? Okay. I'm sorry, I haven't muted it. muted it.
That's okay.
Yeah, on my end, typically with the co-pub, situation, we were in a situation where we were able to write. We received notes, messages, emails at the time of what was needed from the record labels, and we would then follow through and produce, write, record, send out within a matter of 2 or 3 days what was requested to the publishing company from the publishing company. Once we sent it to them, it was kind of like out of our hands, and we were literally hoping and anticipating them placing those records with us, with artists at the labels that were, that we submitted. And so I think that has changed a lot, that landscape where you have a publisher that is actually working on your behalf every single day to work your catalog, of course, manage your catalog, admin your catalog, and communicate with you on a consistent basis. We also had writers retreats where they would fly us out and we would all get together to be like 90 of us in one huge conference room and meet with all the labels and have like direct access and relationships that we can build with those A&Rs and the execs who were coming out introducing their artists. They would also bring their artists out as well. And so typically, those were traditional days. Now it's slightly different where, it's kind of like quicker turnaround, accessibility, and relationships, networking directly with the labels and the A&Rs outside of your publisher. So, you really, things have changed, but definitely I would say with traditional deals compared to now, it really is all about the creator having a team, but also being aggressive on their own and building those relationships.
Yeah, and I think it's like a give and take at the end of the day. A major publisher is going to offer you an advance, but they're taking ownership of your music, right? So you just have to understand the implications of that. They might pitch your music for sync, but they now have those rights for potentially perpetuity, potentially 30 years, and they might put you in writing camps, but they also might require your entire catalog, right? Everything's really negotiable at the end of the day. So if you are getting traditional offers, you just want to be able to ask the right questions. Maybe it's only for one album, right? And you keep ownership of your back catalog, or maybe it's just for your first release, but you keep ownership of future releases, right? So these are just kind of like some questions that you want to ask and good things to know going into traditional deals.
Yeah, so whenever either of the clients that you both work with would be offered a traditional publishing deal, like if that was the right thing for them in their career, what would your recommendation to them be, like before signing any agreements?
Tami, you want to take that one?
I would say just making sure that, for one, your obligation is really low, your minimum is low. I don't think we should at any time obligate ourselves to something that, would require us to overexert ourselves and not really have the opportunity, especially if all the attention is not being put on you, or you don't have a direct connection in publishing in that company, or as a manager, if you don't have a manager who's working your catalog profusely. Like, you really need someone who's aggressive. Otherwise, even though you have turned in songs, you don't get credit for anything that doesn't get placed. So you can turn in, 100, 200, 300, 400 songs in your catalog, but if those songs do not get placed, that publishing company still has the right to record and make money off of those songs, but they won't necessarily go to your commitment because it has to meet a certain qualification. And so I would just say, keep your minimum, your obligations really low to protect yourself, so that, instead of being obligated to turn in 10 songs, maybe you're only obligated to turn in 4, and, you just work at getting those 4 placed, instead of having to like aim for 10 records. I mean, it's just kind of it's kind of steep these days. These days, people are like 1 and 2 placements, maybe every year or so. It just depends on your team. It's so many other factors that are involved with major publishers that, could really, really put you in a bind, and you're the creator who has the deal.
And going off that, you may have a minimum delivery requirement of 10 songs, but that's typically at 100% ownership. So if you co-write a song and you only get 10 or 15%, that's only 10 or 15% of one song. That doesn't count as 100% of one song. So 10 songs at 100% could really end up being hundreds or thousands of songs.
Right, because most songwriter is not a lot of times are we songwriters actually making the music also. We have to split that percentage with the producer. And that was to touch on what I meant earlier about it depends on the obligations and what all you're getting credit for, because if the terms are different, then it could be hard to meet those obligations.
Absolutely. And to prepare the artists that I work with for a traditional deal, if one ever comes across the table, I just want to sit down with them and have an open conversation. Like, what is it that you're looking for from a publishing company? Are you looking for an advance? Are you just concerned about the money and everything else is kind of, ancillary? Did you sign a record deal? Did you already get a big record deal advance? And maybe now you want to keep ownership of your publishing. So you're looking for admin instead of a co-pub deal where you're giving up ownership because you've already made a lot of money on the master side. So you're like, okay, let me own this publishing. Are you only concerned with creative and sync and getting you in writing rooms with other people? Or are you already well connected as a writer and you don't really need a publisher to, provide those connections and provide those co-writing opportunities? So it's really, hey, like, let's just have a conversation. What are you looking to do? We have a few offers on the table. We can go this route. We can also go this route. What is most important to you as a creator and what are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah, and it's definitely about knowing your options. And we have this slide for publishing administration to get a better idea of what that type of deal looks like.
So yeah, publishing administration, typically there's no ownership, transfer, right? So you're going to be able to work with a publisher. They're going to administer your catalog, but you're going to actually retain the rights to those copyrights and to your catalog. Typically it's flexible deal terms, minimum term lengths, minimum requirements, low admin fee typically. You can pick and choose which songs you want to register. It's not like they typically require your entire catalog. So those are some of the pros. And obviously, they're not going to offer creative services. They're really just in the business of registering your songs, collecting efficiently, but they're not going to pitch your music for sync. They're not going to necessarily A&R your records. They're not going to put you in writing rooms. And typically they're not offering advances. Maybe occasionally you can get a small advance from an admin company. But the difference between admin and co-pub, again, it's really what are you looking for in your career? And honestly, most creators will not have the opportunity to have a co-pub deal, right? So I always say, like, use admin as a stepping stone. In the meantime, if a traditional deal comes across the table down the line, you're still free to take that because you never gave up ownership of your songs. But realistically, most creators should be focused on publishing administration. Yes, there's no advances, but realistically, your songs are out there, they're making money, and you need somebody to, administer your catalog and look after it.
Definitely. So how were you both first introduced to publishing admin deals?
Tami?
I'll go first. So I was wrapping up my co-pub deal, and I also have a brother who's also in the music industry as a trumpeter and writer and composer. And we were looking for options online for distribution, but also being able to collect his publishing for him. And so, I just started doing some research, and then next thing you know, I was introduced to a team member there. After I had already done research, it was just kind of like, oh, I was just looking you guys up, and so I ended up joining after that.
Yeah, I was first introduced. I was co-writing with friends who are artists, one of which is signed to a major label. So I started getting co-writes with him. And at the time, I was really only collecting from BMI. I was under the impression that, BMI was publishing and it was collecting everything that I was owed. And it wasn't really until I started working at Downtown Music Publishing, which is Songtrust's sister company, that I really kind of more so understood the landscape of, okay, BMI is not the only source that is collecting your royalties. You need to work with a publishing administrator to actually admin your catalog, register your copyrights globally, collect on it, deal with the registration issues and the metadata issues, monetize YouTube, um, offer licensing opportunities, if they're there. But very early on, most creators do not understand the concept of publishing in general, but let alone publishing administration. And it's super important. It's really realistically the only option that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Right. So Tammy, what about publishing administration? Because I know you said you were coming from a co-pub deal. So what about publishing administration was most appealing to you?
Well, definitely being able to have the money come directly to me and share a percentage that was substantially lower than what I would be sharing with my co-publisher. Also being able to put other songwriters and producers and artists in situations that could also garner them, retroactive royalties that they may not have been able to find on their own. And just overall, the whole idea that their copyright doesn't have to be owned for, all these years afterwards. Just really putting the power back into the music creator's hand, I think is so essential, so important. And I just also think that this system on the pub admin side is a little bit more simplified. It's turnkey, it's straight to the point, and it does also activate a bit of hustle in the songwriter, the producer, the music creator overall, because it doesn't come with that whole creative services. So it's like, look, if you're really trying to make some substantial income and substantial money, you need to, empower a team to work for you, or these are the steps that you need to take to make sure your songs are properly cataloged and worked. And, to me, it's more a simplified method instead of everything that encompasses the traditional co-pub deal. So that's really, what enticed me to definitely start spreading the word.
Yeah, I think the most crucial aspect, obviously, is the ownership, being able to maintain ownership of your catalog. But what features of publishing administration are most appealing? I mean, it's the whole concept. It's the only option that 99% of creators have realistically. So you can pick and choose, you can have qualms with certain aspects and, be okay with certain aspects, but realistically, like, this is the option that you have as an independent creator. But I also just like the idea of being able to handle your own catalog by yourself, not putting it in the hands of other people who may or may not get things right. We deal with a lot of people who come to us and say, hey, this song that I produced has been registered at BMI, but it's a different person with the same name, right? Had you been registering that, had you been, handling your own catalog, that mistake probably wouldn't have occurred. You probably would have registered these songs accurately, and you probably would have started to get paid earlier. So if you leave it in the hands of other people, they might mess it up, but being able to kind of take that autonomy upon yourself and register your own songs accurately on your own terms, I think is really the most appealing aspect.
Definitely. And I think that brings us right into our publishing checklist, just to go over the main things that every creator should definitely keep in mind and understand when they're deciding on a publishing deal.
Deal length, obviously very important. How long is the deal that you're in? How long does this company have the rights to your music? And is there a post term? Accounting, do they offer advances? How does advanced recoupment work? Like we said earlier, if a company gives you $100,000 for your catalog, they're not going to give you your rights back as soon as they make $100,000. They didn't make any money on the deal, right? They're going to try to make $200,000 back. Creative and sync, do they offer creative services? Are they pitching for sync placements? Are they pitching for co-writing sessions? Things of that nature. Are you required to register all of your works, or can you pick and choose? With a publishing administrator like Songtrust, you can obviously pick and choose which songs you want to have us admin. And maybe, you have a co-pub deal for your first album, but your second album's unpublished. You can bring that to us. We can still work with you on that specific body of work. Copyright, what percentage of ownership are you signing away? Also understanding the different royalty rates for each royalty income. it might be 90-10 sync, it might be 85-15 mech, it might be 80-20 performance. These are just the questions that you want to ask. Technology, is the registration process manual or automatic? Super important in 2020. The registration timeline is very long, drawn out, and having a technology focused company looking after your catalog is obviously in everyone's best interest. What are the upfront fees involved? What additional fees are involved? Do you have to pay to sign up? Do you have to pay for songs, number of writers? You just want to know what the fees are. And communication. Are you actually able to get in touch with this company, or did they just give you some money and you're never going to hear from them again? Ideally, if you have an A&R who signed you, you have a very open relationship with them, great partnership, working relationship. And if you're working with a pub admin company, something like Songtrust, reaching out to your rep or the chat box or our client success team, just opening those doors of communication. Tami, what's your take on kind of the publishing checklist, and what are the things that you kind of look after?
This checklist is really awesome. I was definitely going to talk about the communication factor, and also, working your catalog is important. For one, relationships, hands down, help, because I noticed a difference from writers who were just kind of discovered in like a small town that may have had one successful record. It was a little bit harder for them to collaborate and communicate with their publisher because they weren't like in the same city or were not able to fly out as much. Whereas the writers and producers that were in the city, or a bigger city rather, where they had an actual office for their publisher, they were able to build those relationships, not just with the A&Rs and the creative team, but also, with other writers and producers. And yes, we have the internet, we have, WeTransfer and all these great chat features. We also have TheLABZ, which I'll talk about later, but it doesn't beat the one-on-one, upfront communication, talking, having someone to speak with at least once every 2 to 3 weeks just to find out, what's going on, because case in point, out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Yeah, and I see a lot of questions in the chat box about ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC related to publishing deals. And just to clarify before we go any further, those are performance rights organizations. They are not publishers. They are completely separate. So they are just one of the many societies around the world that collects publishing royalties, while a publisher would connect you to multiple collection societies. So just to clear the air on that before we get any further. But back to the publishing checklist. So Tami, which of these, items on the checklist do you wish that you knew more about in the beginning of your career when you were getting involved in more traditional publishing deals?
Definitely the deal length, the terms. Remember, we were talking about how many songs I was obligated to, I had a commitment and how many songs I had to turn in, but actually how much of that song went towards my commitment. So definitely that. The accounting, of course, because as technology changes and, you're now not going from a manual system, but everything is automated, you kind of think about, well, what was actually accounted for in the past that I still may not have been able to collect. Cataloging system was fine because I've always been really organized, but yeah, there were no any upfront fees involved on my end, but just, really the terms, the deal length, and the communication. Copyright, of course, it was what it was. I mean, they advanced a lot of money, so I knew that was something that I just couldn't, argue with. However, when I got into my co-pub situation, I negotiated that the Whitney Houston song, since it was prior to my publishing deal, would not be included. And so that still gave me, thank you. So that really secured me outside of the obligation to my publisher, was that I still had all of that money of my ownership coming back to me.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's most concerned with, like, probably creative and sync. And it really depends on the deal and the company that you get engaged with. If they offer you a big advance, they're going to look to recoup that. So they're probably going to put a lot of effort into working your catalog. If it's a no advance, low admin fee. Maybe they're not going to push your stuff as hard as they could, compared to if they've given you $500,000, right?
Right.
And also copyright. What percentage are you signing away, but also the different royalty rates. And at the end of the day, everything's negotiable. Like if a company contacts you, I'd like to think that you have some leverage there. They're interested in your creativity and your music, right? You're the creator. You can ask for things, and you might have to give other things up. There are pros and cons. It's give and take. It's a negotiation at the end of the day. But don't be afraid to ask these questions, and ask for more. Ask for a bigger advance. Ask for better royalty rates, and ask for more opportunities. Sync, creative, A&R, all that stuff.
Definitely. So bringing it back to publishing admin, we're just going to do a quick overview of how Songtrust fits into this whole publishing landscape. So we are a global publishing admin service. We work with anybody from independent creators starting out on their career to labels who also service publishing for their clients. So it's definitely a one-size-fits-all platform, and any songs that you register with Songtrust would be registered globally, so that you could have access to both your performance and mechanical royalties, no matter where your music is being streamed and listened to. And just to give you an idea of our size, we're working with over 205,000 songwriters, thousands of publishers for over 2 million copyrights. And this is pretty similar to the slides that we showed earlier of the differences between a publishing admin and a traditional publishing deal, but a little bit more specific to Songtrust. We do have a one-time setup fee of $100, and you keep 100% of your copyrights. We have a 15% admin fee of the royalties we collect on your behalf. It's a song-by-song agreement, so super flexible there. You could just use Songtrust to collect on songs that are outside of any other publishing agreements that you have. And we have a minimum 1-year term length, so you can cancel anytime after the first year. And yeah, very flexible, open communication always, as I'm sure both of these Songtrust clients can vouch for.
Indeed.
And now Tammy's going to go over a little bit more about what she does.
Yay! So, since I've been helping so many songwriters and producers, I really started focusing on catalog building and really making sure that songwriters, producers, and indie artists really understood the process of prepping their songs prior to release, and also prior to, once the royalties start coming in, how to manage their reports and so forth. So I started my own agency called the Mezzo Agency, and we really look for songwriters and producers who are, of course, talented incredibly, but also have a keen sense of, really wanting to make sure they get it right the first time. I've also been working with indie labels as well to really help steer them in the right direction, just helping them understand the importance of, making sure their song catalogs for their artists are also organized as well prior to release, so that everyone, gets paid on time and royalties are trickling in, and as well as going after old royalties that they may not have even known that were out there. So that's what the Mezzo Agency does. And then also I am the Chief Marketing Officer for TheLABZ, which is a collaboration tool at the genesis of creation. So before you have actually prepped to release, get it mixed and mastered, it's a software, a platform rather, that allows music creators like myself, like Ben, to be able to communicate with each other in one workspace. And he may upload a track, I can upload my lyrics there, and we can, go back and forth, and everything is secured. It's also tracked. And as we contribute to the song, it suggest splits so that we have ownership for everything that we have contributed. That way, at the end of the song, when it's done, there's no question about who wrote what, and there is no misunderstanding on splits and ownership. And so it's a great tool. I recommend anyone who is a music creator and you want to protect your music while you're working and collaborating with other songwriters, log on to TheLABZ, TheLABZ.com.
So everybody's been asking a bunch of questions throughout, so we're going to go through some of those now. Okay, so here's a really good one. Can you have both a traditional and admin deal at the same time? So, I mean, this would depend on the deal terms of your traditional publishing deal. honestly, whether it's your whole catalog or not. If you're only signed to this traditional publisher for a portion of your catalog and you have the flexibility to collect, for things that are outside of that catalog, then you're, free to work with an admin company like Songtrust to collect on those remaining works or any even remaining ownership that you have of those songs that that publisher also has ownership of. Okay. This one might be a better question for you too. So, how do I go about getting a publishing deal?
Tammy, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll just say put in the work and work to get placements because the publisher will find you. If your records are charting, if you are building a buzz for yourself or you're a songwriter and your artist is getting a buzz, publishers are always trying to identify who is the writer, who is the producer. And so that, outside of a situation where you're working and building a relationship with someone who's already signed that can, put you in the door and introduce you to a publisher, I would say the best way is just to continue to build and start, really having records that are going to help bring the awareness to you and that attention, because that's what they're looking for: great writers, great producers that already have records that are making money.
And to go off that metadata, right? These publishers are looking at BMI and ASCAP and Spotify credits and trying to identify, like Tammy said, who's the writer, who's the producer. If you're not properly credited, they're not going to be able to get in touch with you. That's if you're actually in a position to get these kinds of deals, right? But put your head down, go to work in the studio. Don't worry about getting a publishing deal. Like Tammy said, they will find you. That is what their job is, to find, up and coming talent. And if you just focus on the music, which is the most important part, which is required to get a publishing deal, focus on your craft, perfect your craft, get your music right. They'll come and find you. I wouldn't even worry about it. And obviously network, work with artists, try to work with bigger artists that the songs are going to do better. You're going to get more recognition that way. So obviously try to network and collaborate as well.
So, also probably more up your guys' lane. So since Songtrust doesn't plug songs, if somebody's looking to work with Songtrust as their publishing admin to make sure that they get paid, but they still at the same time want to get their songs out there for, other creative uses and sync opportunities, how can they go about that while still using Songtrust to register their songs?
I'd say it's networking and collaborating. You can reach out to A&Rs at labels and send them your demos. Obviously, I don't recommend just cold emailing someone 50 demos and say, hey, check me out, sign me, right? You want to go about it in a professional way. Go to conferences, go to events, go to panels, network with people, DM artists on Instagram. Hey, I'm an up-and-coming songwriter or up-and-coming producer out of, Atlanta, whatever. Here's a 10-track private SoundCloud link of some beats that I've made. Let me know if you're interested in hopping on any of them, right? Or if you're a songwriter, I try to identify some artists that you feel like your demos or your songs fit with, right? And then any way you can get in touch with them, manager, a friend of a friend, another artist that they've worked with, right? You got to try every angle, exhaust your options, but obviously networking and collaborating with other artists is really kind of the quickest route.
I agree.
So here we have a question. How does Harry Fox work? Can independent creators or songwriters register with them? So Harry Fox is just one of the 3 different mechanical societies in the US, and it's pretty difficult for individual creators to affiliate with them. Most, if not all of the time, they require you to be a publishing company, of a certain size. So by working with someone like Songtrust, who already has these relationships with global performance and mechanical societies, you don't have to worry about affiliating at all the different places. You only have to register your songs in one place, and you're, set to go to collect any publishing royalties generated for you. Okay. So if the creator of the work is self-published, will a label usually require your publishing company to share ownership of the material before recording? So I think this would depend, if you're signed to that label and if they own your publishing, pretty much. A lot of times, a lot of these questions will be dependent on whatever deal terms you agree to. Um,
But typically, a record label is not engaging, in publishing revenue or anything publishing related. So if you're just a songwriter or a producer and you get a cut of the publishing on an artist who's signed to a major record label, that should really not, have anything to do with you, and you should still be able to earn and collect on your share of the publishing because you're unpublished. You
yeah,
own and retain those rights until you sign them away.
right. Okay, so what is the best way to keep track of your entire catalog? I know, Tami, you mentioned you're really big on organization, so maybe if you want to share some tips and tricks on that.
Yes, I would say the main thing is when any of my writers are done with their projects, I have them get all of the collaborators' information. If the writers don't have it that they worked with, definitely contact their managers, whoever is in that admin role to collect that data. But sometimes they don't even have that, so I will pull their information sometimes off of BMI or CSAC or ASCAP's website if they are registered with the PRO, because usually it'll have their IPI number and just all of the information I need. Of course, they can provide their name and address and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we do it the old method. I use different tools to help my company stay afloat, to make sure every client is organized, their songs are there, all of their contact information, each collaborator's information, and then we go with the typical spreadsheet, and we make sure everything is assigned and checked off, and we use task management tools to make sure that those songs are registered, and we set deadlines and dates to make sure everything is flowing seamlessly, so that when they join with us, they know all of their work is being registered and attributed to properly as well.
Definitely. And the second part of that question was, and also to register your entire catalog. So, I mean, I think this is more of like as you go and you're releasing songs, you would register those songs. We usually recommend just to register it, the day that it's released, since then you would have all the, information that you need to register the song. So the co-writer's information, the ISRC code from the distributor or the label. So that way you can just get everything done that same release day and make sure that you're not missing out on anything. So it's kind of just an as you go type of thing in terms of as you're like releasing songs. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, so if I register my songs with Songtrust, do I still need to register with my PRO? So we would handle that for you. All you have to do is register your songs in your Songtrust account, and they would be registered on your behalf with your PRO as well as with the other 50 different collection societies that we're with. Okay, so we're just going to do like one or two more questions. Let's pick one out here. Do I need to register my works at the Copyright Office? So pretty much our stance on this is just the fact that the global registration of your songs that Songtrust provides is a great alternative to copywriting, but it is not physically copywriting that song with the US Copyright Office. If you wanted to have that extra layer of protection, that is completely up to you to do that, but global registration does provide proof of ownership. Let me know if you guys have any additional thoughts on that.
No, I'll ask you a question I'd like to throw out there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do I need to get a pub admin deal as an indie artist if I'm not interested in writing for others? If you're writing all your own music and you're an artist and you're not working with other people on that music, you're also a songwriter and a producer. You are the 100% owner of both the master recording and the publishing composition. So even if you're not writing for other artists, Tami's a songwriter, she's written for other artists. Tami can be her own artist and she can write her own music. And even if she's not co-writing for other artists, she's still writing her own music and she still needs to be able to collect, register those songs. So obviously, yes, you need to work with a pub admin company, even if you're not working with other writers or producers, even if you're just putting out instrumentals on Spotify or producing and rapping over them and putting them out. If you're just an artist, you still need to also work with a publisher.
Definitely. So that's going to be the end of our Q&A session. Ben or Tami, do you have anything else that you want to add as like your last words or anything?
I'd just like to say this is super important. Shout out everybody who attended this webinar. Obviously, you're taking the right steps for your career, educating yourself on these topics. But realistically, 99% of creators are going to be focused on publishing administration. Getting a traditional deal that is a big advance and, oh, I'm going to get in rooms with these big artists, those are few and far between. That's like making it to the NBA or the NFL, right? Realistically. So you want to know what kind of artist you are, not put yourself in a box, but obviously work with pub admin as a stepping stone. And for somebody like myself, I've been with Songtrust for almost 2 years now. I don't ever plan on signing a traditional deal, so I'll probably be with Songtrust for as long as I'm writing. And if that traditional deal does come down the line, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But your royalties will only be sitting there for 2 to 3 years. This is super important. You want to get on top of this, register your songs globally as soon as they start making money.
And the only thing I would say is, think about how secure your work is, knowing that you can sleep at night because your songs are registered properly, your royalties are coming in because you are with Songtrust, your pub admin is already taken care of, you're registered, and all you have now to focus on is just becoming a great artist or becoming a great songwriter, producer. You can focus on being consistent and focus on marketing and all these other things that you as an indie artist or a songwriter, producer, or indie label has to focus on, and you won't have to worry about royalties and collection and finding, or trying to figure out how to find money that's owed to you when you have Songtrust as a resource. So I think it's just, a godsend to a lot of songwriter producers and indie artists as well.
Great. Thanks, Tami. All right. So thanks everybody again for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming and, learning more about this landscape. It will definitely help you in the future, whether you'll continue on using a publishing admin service or you'll end up signing to a traditional publisher. We hope that these tools that we've provided you with will help you navigate this market much better. And again, we will be sending you an email after this is over, so you could rewatch the session anytime. If you want to, share the rewatch link with friends or collaborators so they can get educated as well, that'd be great. So don't forget to follow us on socials at Songtrust. We also have Ben and Tami's Instagram handles here if you want to connect with them on Instagram. And for any further Songtrust questions, definitely email contact@songtrust.com. Our team is checking that email daily and we'll definitely get back to you with any specific situations that you need to work out. Well, bye everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.